Hi everyone, my name is REDRUP. You're listening to the It's Not a Phase podcast, and this is the 52nd episode and 1 year anniversary of the podcast. To celebrate this huge milestone, my special guest is Tyler Morris of Tired Violence, who provided the theme music for the podcast all the way back from the very first episode this time last year. We talk all about being an independent musician with his solo project Tired Violence, how being a part of his previous band Misgiving gave him the confidence to go solo, his love for Underoath, working with Ricky Jab on his other project Unsafe Unsound, and loads more. Now, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast and you want to show your support, there's a few ways that you can do that. Number 1, leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. It takes just a few seconds and it really does help. Number 2, share this on your social media, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Or number 3, if you want to go the extra mile, you can pay a little bit each month to join the Patreon, and in return you'll get access to episodes early along with some other perks, or you can pick up some merch from the store. All the links to that and the podcast socials where you can follow us can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now with all that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by Tyler Morris of Tired Violence and Unsafe Unsound. How you doing, dude?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks, man. All good. Yeah, we were just saying beforehand, for people listening who might not 100% be sure, you're the guy who makes who made the theme music to this podcast, and you've been an imprint on, each and every episode so far because of that. And this is kind of the year anniversary episode. So I just want to say thanks for all that you've done, and it's great to have you on.
Yeah, man. Honestly, thanks for inviting me. I feel like this is a long time coming sort of thing, and thanks for reaching out to me in the beginning and asking if you could use the song for the intro. Like, I will say, thinking back, I remember getting the email about it, and honestly, just being like super pumped, like just being like, oh, this is really cool that something I've made, is being asked to be, to be used, for something like this. So it was really cool. And I'm glad to see that it's lasted so long. Cause I'm sure as someone who does podcasts, like everybody and their mom was like making a podcast during like the pandemic and, or whatever. And so it's really cool that you stuck with it and you've been able to kind of like grow and thrive, because I know a lot of people just fall off or don't really understand what it takes to make a good podcast. So yeah, man, it's really good to see you still on it, and having had like such a really good track record of like guests and stuff. Like, you've been kind of crushing it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I try. And you mentioned kind of keeping things going, and this kind of ties into what you do as like an independent artist and stuff. Is it's not quite as simple as you create the product and then people latch onto it. There's just so much more behind it. Like, not only as an artist, you've got to be like a social media manager, you've got to be like a marketer. There's just so much more that goes on with that.
Oh yeah, 100%. A lot of people, I guess, don't really think about everything that goes on behind the scenes, because all they're really seeing is the product. And a lot of people don't think about like, well, this dude had to come up with the idea, contact people, get all the resources, all the materials, get people to agree to come on to this thing that they've probably never heard of, at especially in the very beginning. And as it grows, like, it'll become a little bit easier. And especially with some of the names you've reached out to, getting them to agree is like really cool. I mean, I will say that the way you've approached everything, even with me, has been like really professional. So I think that probably helps, because it seems more legit and more valid than if someone, even the way your emails are stylized with your, like your little like footnote thing at the bottom or whatever that has like all the phone numbers and like the picture, and just the way that you handle everything's really professional. And I think it looks good. So people are more willing, versus just getting an email like, yo, you want to hop on my podcast, bro? Like, that's just, I think that's really off-putting to some of the more like professional people in the industry. So yeah, I think you've just approached it really well. I think you've marketed it and, like established it and managed it really well. And, the fact that you've done it all on your own is something to be proud of.
I mean, thanks for all the kind words, but, like, first impressions count, don't they? So, the email and all the things you mentioned there. But do you ever get like emails or messages or whatever saying, yo, want to come on the podcast?
Dude, I do. I do. I get like, and honestly, I pretty much take all of them. There was only one that I've ever canceled. And honestly, I really wasn't feeling well the day that we were supposed to do it. I was feeling kind of sick, and I just didn't really want to sit for like an hour plus just sitting talking to somebody. And so I told them like, hey, like, sorry, some stuff came up and I'm feeling a bit sick. Like I would like to reschedule. And they were like, yeah, just shoot us an email whenever you want to, come on. And honestly, like I have totally fumbled and dropped the ball on rescheduling that. I've just been so busy. So I do hope whenever I do get the chance to reach back out to them and schedule something that they're cool and they totally understand and that they're willing to like have me back on, because I don't want to burn any bridges or seem like, I made an excuse to get out of it or anything like that. Like I do want to, obviously keep all sense of professionalism seen and stuff like that. So shout out to whoever that was, because honestly, I don't remember right now. And I know that sounds terrible, but I'd have to go back in my emails and check. And yeah, so if they hear this, sorry. They'll know, because that's the only podcast I've ever canceled.
Before we dive into your projects and, being a musician yourself, I just want to know a little bit more about your musical upbringing. Were you raised in like a musical family? What were kind of the first bands you kind of got into?
I wouldn't necessarily say I grew up in like a musical family, like where a lot of people in my family were like talented musicians. So I have I guess like I'll say a lineage from like Portugal. And my grandmother was telling me that he might be like a great uncle or something like that, was actually a Portuguese artist and had like records out and stuff like that, which was kind of cool. I definitely want to spend some more time like looking into that and delving into it a bit, more now that I'm older and I think I can appreciate it more. So I definitely got to talk to her about that. But, outside of that, there really wasn't anybody else who stood out in my family except for my dad. He was a drummer. And, as a very young child, I, just saw him playing drums a lot and, was very interested in it. And so, yeah, I would say that he was probably my biggest like influence into wanting to get started. It was just a very typical, very young boy idolizes like father sort of thing. So yeah, that I would say he was probably my biggest influence. And then, outside of that, like just the type of music I was into at the time was mainly because of him. So honestly, it was oddly enough, like a lot of like 80s rock and stuff like that. Like a lot of like glam rock and like thrash metal and stuff that like I was into. Like my first like on record favorite band was Kiss.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I was really into stuff like that.
A bit different to the music you're making nowadays.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think that's one thing that I really love is if you go and you look at, a lot of artists, a lot of them don't really consume the type of music that they make as much. Like if you ask an artist like what influences or inspires them, a lot of them will tell you stuff that's like outside of the genre, of what they make, and it's really interesting actually. But yeah, so I got super into this like the 80s like sort of rock and stuff like that, and then when I started getting a little bit older, like the alternative scene was really popular in my area. There was like a radio station that played bands like Nirvana and Stained and Linkin Park and stuff like that. And so I kind of started delving a little bit into that, but really, really heavily latched on to Linkin Park, like super hard. And I think that starts to become a little bit more reminiscent of kind of the style that I'm into or that I'm making now. They were a very big influence on me with the electronics and the, the heavy sort of breakdowns sort of, stuff. And, yeah, like the screaming vocals. And then it just kind of like snowballed from there. Like, in late middle school, early high school is when I hit like the quote unquote like emo scene, like with bands like Underoath, Silverstein, Hawthorne Heights, Greeley Estates, Armor for Sleep, stuff like that. And yeah, I just kept going from there. And my music, honestly, taste just kept getting like heavier and heavier, and yeah, now I pretty much, I hate to be that guy, but I will listen to just about anything and try to find something I can appreciate about it instead of just being like, oh, this is trash because it's not metal or something like that,
Yeah.
I'm very big into giving anything a chance and seeing if there isn't any redeeming factor for me personally. But usually I kind of default to listening to, like post-hardcore, metalcore, emo sort of stuff.
I think that's kind of the same with me. Like when I was in high school, I would basically listen to heavy music and not really give much time to anything else. But then as you get older,
Right.
you become less like ignorant to that kind of stuff. Now, like one of my
Mhm.
favorite artists is The Weeknd, which is completely different.
Right.
But yeah, my taste got heavier as well. Like I think to begin with, I thought Linkin Park was the heaviest thing I could ever listen to, and then I started listening to
Right.
like Atreyu, and I started listening to like the Number 12 Looks Like You,
Oh, I love Atreyu.
and it just kept on going from there. So yeah, it's kind of strange how that happens. I guess like you just can't be thrown right into the heaviest stuff. Like I don't think
Yeah.
anyone can start from Behemoth or anything like that.
Right. No, Atreyu I think was like a really good balance for me, like as like a transitionary thing, because they have that like 80s rock style like influence, but then
Yeah,
also that like metalcore style as well. So like for me, they were actually like a band that I loved.
yeah, like they did that cover of what's that Bon Jovi song, "Shot Through the Heart."
Oh yeah, You Give Love a Bad Name.
That's it. That's it. Yeah,
Yep. That
like,
yeah, and it was a sick cover.
yeah. Like I thought they were great, and then I think it's from Lead Anchors. No, Lead Sails Paper
Lead Sail
Anchors.
Paper Anchor. Yeah.
It's kind of from that where I kind of dropped off a little bit.
That I love that album, but yeah, that was the last album that I really like super got into by them, and then I kind of like fell off after that as well.
Yeah,
I should go back and give some of the other albums a chance now that I am like older and a little bit like less like gatekeepy and judgmental. Like I'm a little bit
yeah.
more like open and like less ignorant about it. So I should go back and give those a chance.
Do you remember what the first album was that you bought, or the first gig that you went to?
Ooh, the first the first show I ever went to, my stepmother's mother won tickets to go see Bon Jovi, and I did
Nice.
actually see Bon Jovi first. My first show that I picked out to go see was Silverstein in Rhode Island at a place called Lupo's Heartbreak Hotel, and yeah, it was really dope. It was I want to say it was Silverstein, Rise Against, and Comeback Kid, I think.
What a line.
Yeah, it was a crazy show. A dude like broke a bottle on another dude's head, and like that's one thing that I will never forget about that show because I was like, that was like kind of like set the bar for me. You know, I was like, this is my first like emo like or whatever like show,
Yeah.
and that happens, and they had to like stop the show for a second and make sure everyone was good, and escort people out or whatever. But that was just like that obviously left an impression on me where I was like, are all shows gonna be like this? But obviously, like that was kind of an anomaly, and most shows I've been to have gone off without a hitch.
With no bottles being broken.
Yeah, well, not on anybody's heads at least.
Yeah. So I know before, Tired Violence became a thing, you were in a band called Misgiving, which is kind of like
I
a
was. Oh man, you
post-hardcore.
did some research,
I
bro.
did do some research, yeah.
Hell yeah,
Yeah, so it's like a kind of a post-hardcore metalcore
yeah,
band for a few years. Was that kind of like your first proper band, or did you have a few bands
yeah.
before that?
No, that was my first. So it's so funny because like I always wanted to be in a band, and when like the whole like I would say like very early like middle school and stuff like that, I would try to like do music projects with people, but it would always go to like we'd maybe hang out once, and it would be a quote unquote band practice, and we would all just sit around trying to like, decide what our name would be and who would play what, and then like nothing ever happened, or we would make like MySpace band pages and like maybe take one photo of ourselves like at the mall or something like that. And then like nothing ever happened. We never made music, but I started to try to get into like music and stuff like that more seriously when I was in high school. Went around and played like a couple like open mic nights or trying to make stuff on my laptop or whatever. And nothing ever really like panned out. I just unfortunately just didn't really know what I was doing and didn't really have anybody to like teach me anything. And it was before like, YouTube tutorials were literally everywhere, and you could
Yeah.
just like go on the internet and I'm sure I could have like at some point, but that just wasn't my thought process at the time. Was like, I don't know how to do this, let me just YouTube it or
Yeah,
Google it
yeah.
or whatever. So yeah, I will say that like I tried out for several bands, and unfortunately I just never got picked. Not really sure why. I don't know if it was like, I just wasn't that good or whatever it may be. I just didn't fit what they wanted. I never really got a bunch of like solid answers. I know one band just, they said like, well, the guy who is doing our singing is just also going to do our screaming now. So we just don't need like a screamer or, whatever. So it was just kind of like small stuff like that. But every one of those bands I tried out for ended up like failing shortly after I tried out for them. So
Right.
I guess it was kind of like a blessing in disguise that I didn't, get to join them and then, have it fall apart. So I ended up meeting this guy. His name is Joseph. He had just moved to the state from California. I live in Virginia, and so I was working, at a vape shop at the time, which was funny because I didn't even vape. Like I was just working there,
Poser.
and yeah, basically, yeah. And like I had vaped, but like honestly, I had quit, but I still worked there
Right.
because I was like, this is dumb. Like, but I was like, I still got to make money.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
So
you pay your
like,
bills.
yeah, so I was just working there, and he came in. He was wearing like a Like Moths to Flame shirt. Yeah, I commented I liked his shirt. He commented he liked one of my tattoos. We started talking. He was like, "Are you a musician?" I was like, "Yeah, actually, like I'm a vocalist." And he's like, "That's crazy. I need a vocalist because I, write music, but I don't sing or anything." So what's so funny is we exchanged numbers, we exchanged demos, and then didn't do anything for like a year. Just like I was too busy, and then there was kind of a fiasco at the vape shop I worked at. I got into an argument with like one of the owners over like money. And yeah, basically I ended up quitting just on the spot. And yeah, so I just contacted him like right after I left. And I don't know why. It was like one of the first things I wanted to do was just like, hey, I basically have a bunch of free time right now. I really, really want to get back into doing music. Like I've put it down for far too long. Do you want to hang out and try to write something? So we hung out, and like, dude, like he had so much faith in this project that literally the first day we hung out, he bought me a guitar.
Oh, wow. That's commitment.
I'm so serious. Yeah, like so serious. And I was like, oh, I guess I have to make music with this guy now?
Yeah, yeah.
And I skipped over something that's kind of funny. Like a little fun fact is the first day we met, I was like a supervisor at that vape shop or whatever. Like I was like just under management. And so we had a warehouse in the back of the store because we did distribution as well. And so I took him into the warehouse where it was like employees only
Right.
because I wanted to show him that I could do vocals. And I had like a Bluetooth speaker, and I put on like a Woe Is Me song and just like sang and screamed it in the warehouse in the back of a vape shop too. And yeah, I think that was just kind of enough. He was sold. We went, he bought me a guitar. We went back to his house and we wrote 2 demos that day. And yeah, it was working out, man. So we just kept it going. We finished the EP in like, I don't know, like 2 months or something like that. Like, or I think that's how long it took. Got it done, recorded it all ourselves. And you can tell because it sounds like trash. Like it's on Spotify if people want to listen to it, or Apple Music or whatever. Like it's called Beg for Forgiveness by a band called Misgiving. We did that. We put it out, and then we started recruiting other members because we wanted to be like a full band. And then we wrote our next EP, which was called Resolve. And that one is the one that I'm probably the most proud of. Out of almost anything I've done, I'm extremely proud of that EP. I
Right.
love the style of it. I love the sound of it. I love the way it was produced. I love, the lyrics I wrote for it. Like there's not really anything I can say bad about it. And I try not to be biased. I try to be objective, but I think it's just a really great EP. Like I have it framed and on my wall. Like,
Okay.
because for me, it was like, that was my first really big, like professional attempt at
Yeah.
making music. Like we got it recorded by a producer and mixed and mastered and all this other stuff. So, that to me was like a very important part of my like musical legacy. And then, unfortunately the band just kind of started falling apart after that through, and I've said this before, like varying levels of priority from the members. Like some people just weren't really in it anymore. Other people just had other things going on, so they couldn't focus on the band and they needed to get, some things situated personally. It ended up in the end just basically being me and the drummer, which, just it kind of sucked because like it's nothing against him, but me and one of the guitarists, Joseph, were, the people who started it, and just without Joseph in it anymore, it just didn't feel right to continue. So we just kind of let it go. And I'm still extremely close with Joseph. I still talk to him all the time. Like we're on great terms. Like I love that guy to death. He was just kind of going through a lot of the time and couldn't focus on it. And I totally understand and respect his decision. But I know he, we've talked about it, and he definitely still like kind of kicks himself for it because, he believes, and so do I, that we were really good and that we could have, definitely gone further. But we still talk and talk about writing music together and, whatever. So maybe in the future we can, come up with something. But at this point, there's too much negativity around Misgiving for
Right.
us to want to bring it back. So we would probably just start a whole new project. That way there's no negative connotation with us and wanting to work on it. But yeah, so when Misgiving fell apart, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. Misgiving had consumed years of my life at that point, and I felt super lost without a music project to work on. And through doing Misgiving, I had earned and gained the confidence to try to work on something as a solo artist, and the knowledge and the connections where if I needed help with something, there would be somebody there. So I started Tired Violence. And yeah, that was a big step for me. I just started writing music on my own, started putting stuff together. And then like I really kind of caved into the whole TikTok thing. Like I really saw it as like I had avoided it and then started seeing it as just an opportunity. And and it was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot. And I have to thank it because I think TikTok has really been what has kind of perpetuated any sort of success that I've had. So yeah, I have to thank TikTok for that. And that's how I met Ricky, who is known as Ricky Jab online. And we met each other through TikTok. And it was crazy because I had been admiring him from afar. Like I
Right.
would scroll through and he would always pop up on my For You page. And so he would always pop up and I'd always see his videos and go, dude, this guy is so good. Like I'd love to work with him, but honestly, he's probably too good for me. You know what I mean? Like and it wasn't like self-deprecation or anything. I felt like he was much bigger than I was. He wouldn't want to work with me at my point in my career. Funny enough, he would scroll through and see my videos and had the same sort of feeling of like, dang, like this is the vocalist that I want to work with, but he probably like doesn't want to work with me. He's probably not going to want to. So we're just like this stupid little like middle school crush sort of thing where we're both just like, he's not going to like me, but I like him.
Yeah, someone's got
Not
to make the first
talking to each
move.
other. Right. So funny enough, I want to say he made the first move. He came to one of my videos and was like, yo, we should cover this song by Seosin. And I had already done a vocal cover of that song. So I was like, oh, dude, like, sorry, like, I already did a vocal cover of it. But like, if there's anything else, like, just let me know. And I guess he felt like that was like my rejection.
Yeah.
And so he didn't like follow up. And then I remember finding a video of his where he was doing like it had blown up and he had needed a vocalist for it or something. It was like a cover. And so I was like, hey, like, shoot me that song. I'll do vocals on it or whatever. And he was like, oh, I already found another vocalist. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I was like, dang, he rejected me this time.
Oh God.
So it was so funny because it didn't work out. But then he did a cover of Lonely by Justin Bieber and it was popping off on TikTok at the time. He did like this remix of it that made it like more post-hardcore, metalcore, or whatever you want to call it. And I heard it and jumped on it instantly because it was taking off. And I said, yo, boy, if you don't send me that instrumental right now. And he hadn't found a vocalist yet. And he was like, you know what? Actually, I think you would be perfect for this. Let's do it. And that really is what started everything. That cover, we got it done in like 2 days. I had never even heard the full version of the Justin Bieber song. So I'm listening to Ricky's version and
Yeah.
have the lyrics and the original version of the other song pulled up. And I'm just pressing play on the original version, seeing how it's sung, and then like going back to Ricky's version and then singing it immediately after. And I'm just bouncing back and forth just so I can finish the song to get it over to him because I felt like this was my opportunity. And what an opportunity it was, in hindsight, like it really worked out. People loved it and they pushed us to, it pushed us by ourselves to want to work together more because it was the chemistry was there. And, other people were like, yeah, you guys should do more stuff together. So we were like, okay, let's talk about it. And it's so crazy because, Ricky called me one day and he's talked about this publicly. So I don't like mind kind of talking about it because I know he won't mind, but he was kind of going through a lot at the time where he was in a career that he just wasn't passionate about anymore. And he was about to have a job interview and he got there and realized he didn't want to go through with it. And I barely knew this dude. Keep in mind, like we'd only talked like a handful of times and about business stuff. And he calls me from like a motel or a hotel or something like in some other state. And it's just like, I'm basically having like a life crisis right now. And I need someone to talk to who can be like objective and non-biased. And I was like, okay. And dude, like, even though he barely knew me, he felt like he could trust me on it. And, we just had like an instant connection and I gave him life advice that was like, don't go through with the job interview, stick to music. Like it's going to be what you love. It's going to be, what kind of takes you off. And I promise like it's going to work out because of your drive and your work ethic. Like, and we talked about it for a while. We were on the phone for like hours. And finally he just packed up and said, I'm not going to the interview. You're right. I'm going to tackle this head on. And we started writing music together and he started blowing up more and more. Now he's got hundreds of thousands of followers. He's like on tour right now with Taylor Acorn, like, and other bands. Like he's about to be playing like main stage festivals, and like I'm super proud of him. Like
Yeah.
he was so great. And then our band that we started together, we went viral for a cover of What Hurts the Most, like made famous by Rascal Flatts. They didn't originally write it, but so we popped off for that, and then we started a business together and all this other stuff. And so we just actually finished our EP, and it's all mixed and mastered. We're just kind of getting ready to release it whenever we got to get some stuff together. But while he's on tour, we're trying to figure all that out. But everything's worked out really well, honestly. And once again, it's pretty much thanks to TikTok for real.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, 'cause I was kind of like you as well when I was so hesitant to start TikTok because I guess it's kind of just from the outside kind of marketed as like a kids dancing app or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. And then I thought I'll just do it's everyone's going on about. I'll do like a couple of videos, and now I do 3 or 4 videos a week at least. And
Yeah.
you were saying, it's kind of like offered you so many opportunities that might not have even come about if you didn't use TikTok. And by extension, you've helped Ricky as well. Like if you didn't meet on TikTok, you might not have had that conversation in the motel.
Yeah.
Then where would he be now? He might not be doing music at all.
Oh, we talk about it all the time. It's so crazy. We're like, like we don't know if we believe in things like, fate or destiny or,
Yeah.
karma or any of that stuff. But people say that everything happens for a reason. In a weird way, I think people kind of like mystify that and say that like honestly, there's like a plan laid out for you, like the idea of like a predetermined sort of like role that you're playing in life. But I feel like that removes like free will from people, and like I don't necessarily subscribe to that. It's weird because I feel like for me, it's more like almost literal. Like everything happens for a reason, meaning like nothing happens without reason.
Yeah.
Like it's like cause and effect. And so I just see it as more of a literal thing and less about like, like predetermined like events. And so I just think it was by honestly chance that
Mm.
me and Ricky met. And I just think that there was like honestly like an attraction there, of like he has this like for me that's what it was. It's like seeing him in his element. Like I'm like I love the energy he gives off. Like he, the type of music that he's playing. Like I was like, this is somebody I want to work with, and I just think it was mutual. And there was just that barrier of it's always awkward just being like, hey man, I saw you online and I really like your vibe. You know what I mean? Like, so it was just kind of that, how do we get over that? But after that happened, everything just fell into place, man. And yeah, I'm super happy with everything we've done, and, happy to have made that connection. The dude is genuinely just one of the best people I've ever met in my life. Like as a person, as a musician, like I love him to death, honestly. And, yeah, I'm just super glad that we're doing so much together.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I guess, well, when you were in Misgiving, did you do any like writing and recording and producing yourself, or was it not until Tired Violence kind of became a thing that you were like self-producing?
So with Misgiving, like we self-produced our first EP. Like I said, it sounded like trash, you know what I mean? But
Yeah, yeah.
we did all that. Everything that I've ever done in any of these bands, like as far as vocals, is all me. Like it's all the lyrics were written by me, all the melodies were written by me, all that. But when it comes to like guitar and all this other stuff, like, it's usually, I mean, I can't even think of any songs that I offered, a part in like Misgiving or Unsafe Unsound when it comes to like guitar or drums or whatever, which is weird because then when it comes to Tired Violence, like pretty much a majority of everything is written by me. Like I've had instances where, I've hit somebody up and been like, hey man, like, I'm working on this, like, and I would, definitely, if you don't mind, like your help kind of doing, this or that or whatever it may be, whether it's just because I need to get a song out by a certain date and I have time constraints, and if somebody else handles something, I can handle something else and we can knock stuff out quicker, or, whatever it may be. But I usually don't like mix and master any of my own stuff.
Right.
As far as like the synth work and all that goes, that's all me. All the vocals, all the lyrics, like all that stuff is all me. So I will say that like a majority of everything I do in Tired Violence is me outside of mixing and mastering. But like I had a song recently, it's not out yet. It's coming out, I think, next month. I haven't announced it yet, but surprise. But I got to a certain point in the song where I was just like, I hit like a roadblock, and like just mentally, I was like, I can't think of what to do here. And I showed it to a friend. Actually, it was Joseph, the guitarist of Misgiving, and he was like, "Yo, like let me record something on this." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I sent it to him. He sent me back like this guitar riff for the chorus, and I was like, or like a chord progression, and I was like, "Yo, that's sick!" Like I love that. And so it's I'm open to collaboration. I'm not at that point where like I feel like too many people have an ego problem and a pride problem, and they're like, no, like I have to do everything myself. And there's nothing wrong with wanting a sense of ownership, but like the refusal of collaboration, I feel like is such a childish mentality, honestly. Like, like cool, like let's collaborate, let's work with other people, like get other people's ears and eyes and hands on it, and like let's make something cool.
I guess
I
because
don't
if
want the
you
song to
keep on
suffer.
like working on a song, you kind of get stuck in like you kind of got blinkers, haven't you? You're only seeing certain things that other people might see
Yeah,
outside of it.
yeah, and like, and I don't always get stuck, but when I do, like I don't refuse outside opinions just for
Yeah.
the sake of like, well, this is mine and I want to do it. Like it just feels very like bratty. It's like, but anybody who does that, like I'm not saying this to offend. It's just it's the openness to collaboration I feel like helps to service the song overall. Like if you have other ears or eyes or people with other influences or different views on music, you could end up creating something arguably so much better because like you may not just be thinking in a certain direction that somebody else will, and the direction they're thinking might just be what that thing that song needs, to
Yeah.
really take it over the edge and be great instead of good. And so I'm actually super proud of the chorus he wrote. And then I actually changed just the very last note in the chorus because I found another one that I liked, shot it over to him, and he was like, oh yeah, that one's way better. So it's like we are totally cool with collaborating and bouncing stuff back and forth and trust each other's opinion on stuff. And
Yeah.
I think that's what helps a lot of these songs.
Yeah, definitely. And over the years, the past few years, definitely, it's become, I guess, easier and cheaper for people to become, like bedroom musicians, bedroom producers, all that kind of stuff. In your opinion, like for someone who was looking into kind of, dipping their toes in that, just kind of experiment and making the music of their own, do you have like suggestions of, maybe software or equipment where they can get started?
Honestly, I don't want to be the guy that like gives somebody like certain advice because some people will take it and then be like, no, this dude said it, it's the end all be all. So I will say this: experiment. That's what I did. I experimented with multiple different softwares to find one that I liked. If you don't have the access to multiple different softwares, try as far as like the budget, like try out their demo modes and find one that you feel like is a good workflow, and then just see if there's any within your budget that you really feel like has a comparable workflow. I
Yeah.
feel like, certain people will tell you certain ones are industry standard. Certain people will tell you certain ones are just, not good or whatever. But I think everything's subjective. And I think that in most cases, recording software is fairly similar across the board outside of maybe a few of them. And I think that it just comes down to personal preference. As far as like recording gear, don't think that because you're spending more money, your music is going to sound better. Because, like, if you're a talented musician with a lot of knowledge, you can take really low budget equipment and make it sound amazing. And if you have no skill and all of your stuff is super expensive, your music is still arguably going to sound like shit. Like, just to put it straight, you know what I mean? Like, so work with what you've got, work with what's in your budget, and just do some research into obviously like what you need to make things happen. But arguably, I would say some of the most important things to have are obviously some sort of computer, an audio interface, instrument cables if you're going to be working with guitars or anything that you need to input that way, or a microphone that works through XLR input, over USB, I would say. And then that's really just about it, like outside of the software, and
Yeah.
just keep at it, because that was the thing. It's like I just tinkered, man. Like I'm definitely somebody who likes to be hands on. So I downloaded the software and just started clicking on stuff. It's like, what happens when I do this? And then I'd already kind of had an ear for melody and the sense of rhythm. So it was a little bit easier for me. There wasn't as much of a barrier to entry. But yeah, overall, yeah, work with what you've got. And I think everybody has like an inspiring sort of idea. You get a guitar hero, quote unquote, and you see the guitar they're playing and you're like, that's the guitar I want because I want that sound. And, arguably you don't need to go that far, because just because you have the same equipment doesn't mean that you're automatically going to start playing like that person.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely is more about the skill than it is the gear.
Yeah. So Misgiving comes to an end. You start this project, Tired Violence, which is, named after the Underoath documentary. What kind of made you gravitate towards that name specifically? Because, I guess you use that name not just for your musical output, but obviously online when you're making like these, silly videos on TikTok and memes and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty much just the umbrella like that I do all of my like artistic creation under. Underoath, it's no secret, is my favorite band. And, they released that documentary and I always thought the title was really cool. And, like full disclosure, like, I don't, just bring it up randomly, but it does tie in here. I do kind of struggle with a couple of like mental health issues that I've been diagnosed with. And for me, it was just kind of that idea that I just genuinely, a lot of this music, a lot of what I write is very much based around these things. And between like, some physical issues that I have and some mental issues, that I've been diagnosed with, it's kind of the idea that in the title, it's called Tired Violence. And I feel like there is a side of me that like I don't really portray a lot on camera. Once the cameras are off, once I'm away from it, there's a lot that people do not get to see. And it's that idea, I guess, that, every day is a bit of a struggle and it gets a little bit exhausting. You know what I mean? And it's like, regardless, I have to keep it up for, myself, for my kids, for, what I want in life. So it's that like I'm tired, but fighting like regardless of the fact that I'm like tired of fighting my hardest. But it is what it is. And, I've just kind of learned to accept and try to adapt. And so I think that the title really just struck a chord with me. And I felt like it was a good, phrase to kind of represent and encompass a lot of what my inspiration for a lot of my music and lyricism and stuff is about. Because I definitely try to write for the cause of giving a message to other people. I know it's corny or cliche or whatever, but that is really like the biggest reason why I do this. It isn't to be famous. It isn't to be cool. Obviously those are like, I guess, they're like bonuses, like if you're seen that way, but like realistically, the whole point I wanted to do this was to just be like, if anybody is struggling in a similar way, or if I write these lyrics in a way that it resonates with somebody, even if they're going through something entirely different, they can just find something in this and it helps people. Like that's just really been my overall goal, is to just try to, be a catalyst for recovery, for representation, stuff like that.
Yeah. You say, Underoath being one of your favorite bands. What would you say is your favorite Underoath album?
Ooh, Define the Great Line. Easy.
Correct answer. That's the correct
Yeah,
answer.
that is literally my favorite album of all time. It just hit me in such a way when it's so funny. I tell this story sometimes, like I had already been into Underoath because a friend had burned me a copy of They're Only Chasing Safety. And immediately from the track one, I fell in love with that band and said, this is my favorite band for the rest of my life. Like this is my entire personality. And then I went to go visit grandparents who lived in Florida at the time. And my grandmother took me out to like, it was during like Christmas time. So she was like, let's go to the mall. Let's pick you out some new clothes. Like, let's, maybe go to a store and you can pick out some things that you want, like as Christmas gifts. So got clothes for school and stuff like that. And then like, I was like, I would like to go buy like CDs. And she was like, okay, cool. So we go to the store and I'm like going through and I was like, new Underoath album. Like they have to have something. Found Define the Great Line. And I was like, let's go. So I bought that and 30 Seconds to Mars, What a Beautiful Lie. And we get in the car and then she was like, why don't we put on one of the CDs that you just got? And I was like, okay. So I was like, the safe option at this point is 30 Seconds to Mars.
Yeah, definitely.
Like it's the softer choice. So we start listening to that and we're driving, and then like we get through a couple songs and she was like, well, we still got a little bit of a ride home. Why don't we listen to the other one? And I was like, I was dreading this. And then so we put it on in regards to my self starts and you hear like the little film reel going and the whole time my heart is racing because I was like, I'm about to get so judged right now.
You know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I'm like, like 14 years old or whatever, so I'm like, this is it, and what's so crazy is they've never been like super, I guess she's never really been, my grandmother on that side has never really been super judgmental or like, like non-supportive or anything. So I don't know what I was scared of, but it's just that fear you have as a kid. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, here comes the judgment from the adults. And the song just starts, like kicks off with the screaming and the heavy riffs.
Yeah.
And it just kind of took her back for a second. But then she just kind of like looked over and I was just kind of like, yep, this is it, And then she was just kind of like, all right, that's interesting, but it is what it is, and that was really about it. It wasn't like this horrible, like, oh, I can't believe you like this. It was just kind of like, all right, man, if this is what you're into. And yeah, so Define the Great Line, I just think it was just the step I needed to try to start getting into things that were heavier and not so like poppy post-hardcore,
Yeah.
So it was just what I needed. I mean, like that album is still arguably fairly poppy, but you know what I mean? Like it gets a little bit heavier. And then like Define the Great Line comes out, and then it's just like that album really pushed that metalcore sort of sound where like I was like, yo, this is a whole new world to me, and really pushed me into something heavier. I mean, I love the screams on the album, the production, everything, like the seamless transitions between songs. Everything about it to me was just so perfect. And I think also just throughout the lyricism and stuff like that, as I was getting older and getting into different things and, different choices in my life, like really started standing out to me and just resonating with, me in a way where there was never a point in my life where that album just didn't do something for me.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a perfect album. And if anybody says otherwise, they're wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd say it's one of my favorite albums as well.
Oh, yeah. So good.
So, if anyone says like top 5 metalcore or post-hardcore, whatever albums you want to say, that's definitely in there, like 100%.
Well, I mean, can we agree that Underoath is probably one of the biggest reasons why the scene moved in the direction that it did? Like without them, we wouldn't have had a certain style or sound. Because I really feel like, and this isn't just being like a biased fanboy or anything, like I feel like when they dropped, there were so many bands that were like, this is it, this is the direction, this is the sound that we all need to take. Like the dual singer like mentality of like one singer, one screamer, the way the music like was stylized and written. Like I feel like so many bands were like inspired or influenced by them from like Safety and like especially Define moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think like that album's like hugely influential in that way, like you described, and probably one of the most influential albums of that genre until like Sempiternal eventually. But
yeah, I would totally agree. Sempiternal was a huge album.
There's still bands trying to do Sempiternal now.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I feel like honestly, half the bands that are making music are just trying to fill that sound that Bring Me the Horizon has kind of like, popularized,
Yeah.
It's that like almost industrial poppy, like alternative sort of sound. I mean, even the Underoath is doing it now, I feel like, honestly, I feel like they were so ahead of the curve until they left. And I feel like once they came back, it almost feels like they're playing catch up now. I don't dislike Erase Me, despite, the fact that it wasn't exactly what I, was wanting from them. I still grew to love it. And then like, Voyeurist, I feel like is actually a great album, but, it's just one of those things where, yeah, I think that they're still kind of like catching up or finding themselves still from like, their breakup. So hopefully, I think they're coming into their own still, but I think that they're making it happen.
Yeah, I think they've just signed to like a heavier label now away from so that probably indicates what's going to happen with the next one.
Well, I mean, their newest single was interesting. It half of it was like really like erratic and heavy, and then the other half was like poppy and like sing-songy almost to an extent. But I kind of loved it.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
I don't think I've hated anything they've put out since Spencer joined. I didn't really like anything pre-Spencer.
That's fair, dude. Honestly, those albums are kind of hard to listen to.
yeah.
Totally fair.
Well, I know, like, obviously, along with, we kind of mentioned it earlier, but along with, obviously, you making your music, you do kind of, like, tongue-in-cheek jokes towards the, like, genres and the scenes sometimes on TikTok and stuff, like the whole crabcore kind of thing. Do you think, with a scene that can take itself so seriously, looking at the gatekeepers right now, it's important to kind of, like, point and mock its flaws and its silliness sometimes?
Yeah, I think it's important. I do. I think it's actually, like, if you can't laugh at yourself, man, like, what are you doing? And I think people do take themselves too seriously sometimes. And it's not like out of disrespect or anything. It really is just kind of that like sometimes we have to take a step back and just be like, yo, kind of objectively, like this is a little goofy or this is a little like silly. And like there's no hate meant, and honestly, I was a part obviously of a lot of these things where like sometimes I'll dress up with like shirts with super deep V's and get into crab stances and
Yeah.
all this stuff and being like, damn, we really thought this was cool. And it's like, do I still think it's cool? Yes. But like it's also objectively a little cringe, when if we can take a step back for a minute and just kind of laugh at like how ridiculous it is. Still love it, you know what I mean? I love it, but it's also like kind of stupid.
Yeah, like choreographed,
Yeah.
throwing the guitar in the air or running on the spot and stuff like that.
Oh, dude, yeah, 100%. Like, there's also other things that we all did that were, it's like, with our parents, or whoever it may be, like looking back at like the 70s or 80s or whatever, with the big hair and the leopard print, pants and all this other stuff. It was like, I'm pretty sure they're like, well, I was just a kid, and that was just the style at the time. And,
Yeah.
we're all getting to that point. And I agree, but it'll always have like a place in my heart as like something that was hugely influential to me and something that I still will always love, despite how ridiculous it may be.
Yeah. And even like to make sure you knew a song was brutal, you'd have the vocalist
Yes.
floor out just like,
Yep. And brutal with 2 zeros.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. Like but I do. I like to kind of just point out some of the ridiculousness in the scene. Sometimes when there's a current event happening, I like to, make a joke about it, just to try to like lighten the mood or whatever. But it is what it is, man. Like, sometimes it goes over really well and sometimes people just don't know how to take a joke. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gotten so many like hate comments and messages about it where I'm like, I don't think you understood or it flew over your head. And it is what it is. But for me, it's like, they don't have to always find it funny, but I've, especially as I've gotten older, realized that I feel like the internet comes with a level of responsibility that people just don't have. And like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it takes more effort to externalize and just, be rude to somebody over the internet than it does to just keep scrolling and like not take the time. So
Yeah.
I do just kind of generally not respond to these comments. And sometimes I'll even block the people depending on how hard they go, because I just don't want that negativity. I don't care about, oh, it's increasing my engagement or I'll argue with them so they keep coming back to the video to make it. Like, I don't care about that anymore, Let's just keep it moving. If you don't like me, fine. Like, just keep scrolling. You don't have to tell me. Because it's not like I'm going to care. And what's so crazy to me is it's like half the time I don't understand what they're expecting to get out of their comment. It's just because they have the platform to speak, they feel compelled to. And like, that's so weird to me. Cause like also half of this stuff you wouldn't do like, I would never go up to somebody in person and like, just see them doing something and just be like, hey, yo, that's stupid. Stop doing that. Also, I think that you're dumb and like, or whatever. Like, it's just so rude.
Yeah.
And just the audacity that like anonymity gives people, just the power of, they don't know who I am. I can say whatever I want. I don't get to see how they respond to it. But if it bothers them, that makes me happy. Like, what does that say about you as a person?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I don't know. I think everyone's just so messed up.
that's the internet in a nutshell, isn't it? And especially like with the kind of content we make, like the gatekeepers, like even if you get like, let's say you put up a video about Underoath just because we mentioned them before, and you say, oh, I love this post-hardcore song, and then they'll drop in and say, actually, it's metalcore.
Oh, dude, yep. I can't tell you how many times, like, I think it was like a Yellow Card song or something, and I was just like, I said something about it being emo, and of course people are like, this isn't emo, this is like mall pop rock bullshit, and I'm like, dude, shut up. No one cares. And the thing is, I would love to go on record saying this right now. So like, anybody listening, please understand that half the time when we're saying emo, we're not even just trying to label it as like the genre of emo music, but more so trying to say that like the subculture or whatever of emo people at that time consumed this media and kind of adopted it as their own.
Yeah,
so if I say
it's an umbrella
emo,
term, isn't it? It's like saying something's alternative. It's exactly the same.
Right. Yeah. So if I say it's emo, it's like, yeah, it's because all of the people who were identifying as emo at the time were consuming it, like we adopted that as like, this is ours. This is, what we have now, And so it's so crazy to see how like honestly, like just like disgruntled people get at like such a like the smallest crap, dude.
Yeah.
Like me saying like this is emo and then be like, no, it's not freaking emo. I'm like, all right, dude, chill out. Like, why are you so upset?
That's gatekeepers for you, man.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, moving from entitled gatekeepers to
Yeah.
what you're working on, like you said, you've got this EP with Unsafe Unsound.
Yeah.
It's kind of cooking up. I mean, what does that kind of sound like? What are we expecting from
Ooh,
this EP?
man. So obviously, me and Ricky are both very influenced by like the mid 2000s post hardcore slash metalcore era. You know, bands that I know very much influenced him are like Misery Signals, Silverstein. His favorite band is Thrice. Obviously, Underoath. He's very into like Paramore. So he has like this set of influences that are very much like closely associated with mine, but I started kind of delving more into like a different part of the scene to where like we can connect super hard on a lot of these, like, like Seosin, Silverstein, Underoath. But like I started delving more into like the Attack, the Sky Eats Airplane, the, like the electronic sort of stuff, the I See Stars, where, he, didn't really delve into a lot of those bands. So I think it's kind of just everything on this EP is our influences colliding, like 100%. You can hear all of these influences very clearly. There's a lot of synth, a lot of riffs. The whole thing is like super progressive to where like I don't think there is a song on the album that has a repeated chorus. We just didn't do any. And honestly, a lot of the songs are, I would say, fairly quote unquote short because of it. Like 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, whatever. But it's just because we kind of had this philosophy in writing where it's like, if we start a song and we have an idea musically and we have an idea lyrically and we get those lyrics and that meaning of the song across and the music like feels like it's reached a point where it could like resolve, there is literally no point in extending the song other than for the sake of extending the song. So we've just kind of kept that philosophy where it's like we get our point across, we make it artistic, we do our thing to where we feel fulfilled with it, and then we put it out. And, we hope people like receive that well. Because I also feel like a lot of people aren't spending, dude, how many times like, do you see people, or if you do this yourself, you'll start a song and you'll get halfway through it and you'll skip to the next song, A lot of people do that, and it's nothing wrong with them. They're like, okay, I've heard enough of this one, on to the next, I feel like people aren't even listening to full albums anymore, or at least a vast majority of people. And a lot of songs are getting shorter and shorter, especially in like, the like SoundCloud rap, quote unquote, sort of scene, and even like bands like Bill Murray, like writing like pretty short songs. So I don't know, like I feel like we can kind of be one of the bands in the scene that kind of helps fill that spot, because it's just kind of how we like to go about it. But yeah, definitely like you'll hear like the Seosin influences, the Underoath influences, the Sky Eats Airplane or Attack influences, like the Misery Signals. Like there's everything that you could have liked from those eras, whether it's poppier and more like pop punk sort of sounding, whether it's more progressive and post-hardcore, whether it's heavier and metalcore. Like there's something for everyone, and a lot of it collides in these songs. And so I really love and I'm super proud of what we've culminated, just kind of hoping that people give it a chance and that it resonates with them.
Yeah. And when are you kind of looking to potentially release it? Do you know? Or
so it's a little dicey right now. So I don't want to like go on record saying anything and not, be able to meet that. But I will say we have the EP done, mixed and mastered. It's in our hands. We just want to make sure we have enough promotional material together, but it's a little difficult with Ricky being on tour right now to try to get that together. So we're hoping this summer, early summer maybe, because he'll have some breaks in his tour to like try to get that together before he leaves again. And if he's on tour when it comes out, that's fine. It's just wanting to make sure we have the downtime to prepare, because we want to make sure it does well and doesn't just like fall flat on its face.
Yeah, because that would just be like
it's like several years of work, like several years of work all culminated into this like one release. And I would hate to see it just like flop.
Yeah. I mean, there's no kind of, you're not like on a label or management breathing down your neck. You can kind of just wait until you're ready.
Yeah. So I want to get it out sometime, hopefully this summer, overhaul, get some summer merch going, redo our website, like all that stuff. It would be really cool. And yeah, 100%. I would love to, get it out there. Honestly, even after it drops, like, it would be cool to, book some like press things like podcasts and reviews and all that other stuff to try to like help promote it and get it out there.
Yeah,
Definitely looking forward to trying to do that.
cool. And what about with Tired Violences? What's kind of cooking up there?
Lots of stuff, man. So for those who don't know, released a collaboration with an artist named Becco, who actually is a clean vocalist and bassist for a post-hardcore metalcore band called Hopes Die Last, and they're from Italy. I was super, super into them in high school. Like my chest tattoo was like the name of one of their songs, Like I was in love with that band. And just he was such a big influence on me as like a vocalist, and I just as an adult connected with him once again through TikTok. It's just this has been like so big for me. And we started talking, and he asked to, like, that's what's crazy is he asked me to collab.
Oh,
And that was
cool.
such a big moment. It wasn't me being like, yo, we should do something. He was like, yo, like, I got some stuff cooking up, like let's make something. So I was like, oh, hell yeah, dude, I remember I was so excited. I was like losing it. Like I thought I was gonna throw up from excitement. Like because it was just such a big moment for me.
Yeah,
And like it was super full circle. The guy who I used to listen to is now listening to me. And
yeah.
so it was super cool. Love that. And we got to work on some stuff. It released through his label, the label he's on. And the song did pretty well. And around that time, I was also working on some other stuff with some other people. We haven't officially announced it yet, so I'm going to announce it now because we're going to be announcing it soon. So sorry, Tom, but do you know the band Patient 67?
Yeah,
Popular right now.
Tom Kiley, he came on the podcast a few months
Yep,
ago.
dude, I love Tom. So
Yeah.
there's actually a Tired Violence Patient 67 collab.
Nice.
Yeah, we've been talking for a while. We'd done a couple videos together just for the fun of it, and then we said like, "Yo, let's write a song for real." So I cooked up something because we were like, let's do like a traditional like crabcore song. So I cooked up something. He did the screams for it. I did the clean vocals, and the instrumental and everything. And that's in the mixing phase now, and we should be, I think, putting that out in May. That's coming. I have a single that's done that's coming out soon. That's also in the mixing phase, so I'm just kind of waiting to get that back, and then that'll be ready to go. And yeah, I've just got a couple other things like I'm kind of like balancing right now, but I've got a couple songs in the works that aren't finished yet or anything, but that are like pretty far along. And yeah, so I feel like I'm doing all right. I feel like I'm on the right track. And yeah, so between Unsafe Unsound and Tired Violence and stuff, there are definitely going to be things coming for people who may be fans of things that I do.
Yeah, sounds like you're busy to say the least.
Yeah, I stay real busy.
Well, it all sounds super exciting, dudes. Really excited to see what comes from you for the rest of 2023, especially.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also like, and just to throw this on there, like, I've been getting contacted fairly frequently from different artists about features. Like, I'm not really sure what happened, but just within the last like several months, like, I've had a lot of artists like just hit me up being like, "Hey, would you like to like sing the chorus on my song?" Or, "Hey, do you want a verse on it?" Which is like really cool. I love that. It definitely, this is like for me such a big thing. And I was joking around saying like, I'm going to try to make this year, like, and moving forward, like this era, I want to be the like Craig Owens or Tyler Carter or like Johnny Craig, who's just
Yeah.
on everybody's song. Like, so yeah, there's definitely stuff coming up. Like I've been doing a lot of open verse challenges, like hitting people up for collabs. Do you know the band Micah Relocate?
Yep.
Okay, so Michael from Michael Relocate, obviously that band's no longer a thing. He's in a new project now called Internet Friends. And like great dude, like Internet Friends is they're such a funny like duo, and like their marketing is hilarious. And they haven't dropped any songs yet, but they're coming out really soon. They're about to hit the studio with Matt Squire and like, get it all produced and everything. So they have stuff coming soon, but they're just building up right now with their marketing till it drops. And it's so funny because I got in touch with one of them because we liked each other's open verse challenge on this band 408, their song. And we started talking about like a collab. So I've got something possibly coming with Internet Friends soon. and then other bands who have kind of like contacted me for features. So you'll probably see me post a lot like within the next several months of like, hey, I did a feature here, or hey, I did a collab here, or hey, here's like a new single or an album, or I've definitely kept pretty busy. So while you may not have been seeing like consistent releases from me for a little bit, I have still been working on stuff.
They're just in the back burner right now, and then
Yeah, pretty much. It's just trying to
out.
like it's hard, dude, because we got to schedule things, and everybody's schedule has to align. Where it's like I don't want to push out too much at once. I want everything to get its own time to shine and bit of
Yeah,
attention. So it's hard just trying to like do all that. But I think it's all coming to a head finally.
yeah. Just got to drip feed it out, and just keep people's attention. That's the hardest part, right?
It is the hardest part, no joke.
Yeah. Well, it sounds amazing, dude. Other than kind of what we've talked about, what else is planned for 2023 so far?
I don't know, man. Like honestly, it's so weird because I know like as a business person, you're supposed to have a roadmap and you're supposed to have plans and to execute those plans. But if I can just keep it totally candid, like I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I really don't. Like I started Tired Violence on just the idea that like I needed to keep doing music, and like I'm not trying to sound like egotistical or full of myself, but like I got way bigger way faster than I planned. People started following me. They started asking for things from me. I started like Ghost Killer Entertainment like started scouting me, and all this other stuff, and it was like I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of like going with it. So I've been just kind of learning as I go. So this is really like the first time I think that I've kind of said this publicly, but like I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, and I genuinely mean that. Like, I've just had like a pretty solid string of luck, I would say, and I've just I think guessed right. Obviously they've been like calculated like decisions and guesses, but like I've just been like, hey, based on what I've seen, maybe this might be the right move. And sometimes it's not, sometimes it is. But to get to, obviously I haven't gotten like super far, but even to get to the point where I'm at now, where like things are kind of self-sustainable and whatnot, like it's like I've just been really like I'm super grateful, and I've been really lucky. I try to give as much advice as I can, but like I don't really know how much advice I can really give. And yeah, man, it's just been trying my hardest, to balance this and the other facets of my life. And when it's good, it's good. And when it's not, like, it can really get to you personally. But it is what it is, man. And I'm just grateful to be here. Super happy that anyone gives a crap about what I'm doing. And I hope to continue it and continue to have successes. But yeah, like just to be perfectly candid with everybody, like I've just been winging it.
I think we all are to an extent in our lives. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what
It's like fake it till you make it, like
exactly. Yeah.
that's how I feel for sure. Like I don't have a manager. I don't have a publicist. I don't have any of this stuff. It's really just me being like a stay at home dad, taking care of my kids. And then when I have time throughout the day, trying to make content or, write songs. And, that's really it. It might sound kind of weird, but like, yeah, that's like my whole life is like you're getting up, taking care of the kids and, then being like, all right, like, let me see if I can make a video today, or like, let me sit down on my computer and write.
Yeah. Well,
So
from where I'm sitting, you're killing it. So I just say, keep killing it, man.
I appreciate it, man. I'm trying.
Well, I've noticed I've taken, quite a bit of your time. So I'm going to let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. Before I do
Thank
that,
you, man.
any final words? Anything else you want to say? Anything you want to plug? The floor is yours.
No, I mean, I think if we talked about everything, like if you enjoy, Tired Violence, like thank you. That's all I can really say is like thank you so much to anybody who listened this far because I talk way too much. Thank you if you've been interested in any of this. Thank you if you listen to my music. If this makes you want to listen to it, awesome. If it makes you say this guy is obnoxious, I'm sorry. But yeah, it is what it is, man. Like I try not to be entitled about it. Not everybody has to love me, and it's fine. But all I ask is that hopefully you give me a chance. So Unsafe Unsound, give it a shot. Tired Violence, give it a shot. If you love it, awesome. If you hate it, I understand. And no, I do. I just appreciate you for having me on, and I appreciate everybody for giving me the time. And yeah,
Yeah, thanks again, Tyler. Really appreciate it. Thank you for, letting me use your music for the theme, the intro and the outro.
Thank you for asking.
Of course. And we'll keep in touch, and hopefully I can have you on again a little bit further down the line, and we'll see where you're at with things.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. Sounds good.
Cool. But yeah,
cool.
Take care of yourself, dude.
Thank you, man. You too.
You too. Bye. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast, then please leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. If you want to support the podcast further, you can go and give it a follow on social media, pick up something from the merch store, or subscribe to the Patreon to get early access to episodes. All the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again, hopefully catch you on the next one, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.